The Champions League round of 16 is finally here, so it's only right that I give you my predictions for this set of games. And we got some exciting clashes coming up, like Real Madrid versus Atletico, Bayern Munich versus Leverkusen, Benfica versus Barcelona, and of course PSG versus Liverpool, etc. So with that being said, let's find out what I think with my predictions. And trust me, you're gonna want to stay until the end, because I got some crazy upsets in this video. First, let's start off with an underrated matchup in my opinion, Club Brugge versus Aston Villa. And let's begin by talking about Club Brugge first, who are a pretty weird but interesting team to analyze. For starters, they're not even in first place in their own Belgian league, with that being almost 10 points behind Genk, who's in first place. And although Brugge did have some good results in the Champions League group stage phase, like beating the likes of Sporting CP 2-1 and also beating the side that are about to play in the round 16, Aston Villa 1-0, Brugge only barely squeezed into the playoff round by finishing 24th place, literally the last spot available to stay in the Champions League. And they had the difficult task of playing the team that barely missed an automatic round of 16 ticket, Atalanta. You know, the side that just won the Europa League last season. Yeah, them. So the chances of Club Brugge progressing to the round 16 were looking pretty slim. But the Champions League is full of surprises, because in the first leg at home in Belgium, although Atalanta were able to score against them away, Club Brugge would bag 2 goals, one in the first half, and then after being given a controversial penalty in added time in the second half, which let's be real, that wasn't a penalty, Nielsen converted it to make sure Brugge had a 2-1 advantage heading into the second leg in Italy. Now, did Atalanta get slightly robbed? Yeah, they did, but the Italian side had such a great chance of overcoming this deficit that I thought everybody would forget about this penalty robbery after the playoffs were over. But I was wrong, because the second leg went the opposite of what I thought would happen, because right from the jump in the 3rd minute of the match, the young and talented Belgian forward, Chemsteen Dalby, who's probably going to switch to Morocco from Belgium, let's be serious, created space for himself in the box and somehow shot the ball to the back of the net to give Brugge an early lead in the second leg. But Atalanta is still overcoming a 2-goal deficit, right? I mean, they're definitely capable of that. But instead, in the 27th minute, Dalby again would find himself on the end of a rebound and shot from the keeper and would slam it in to make sure Club Brugge would have a 3-goal advantage over the 2 legs. But that's not even the end of it, because the ex-La Masia product, Jukla, would end up scoring an absolute rocket in the added time of the first half to establish a 4-goal lead over the 2 legs and a 3-0 scoreline in just the first half. And although Ademola Lookman, who just returned from injury, ended up scoring early in the second half, he would miss a penalty, which would halt Atalanta's potential comeback and had them lose to Brugge 5-2 on aggregate. And Lookman's manager, Gasperini, said after the game, he's the worst penalty taker that he's ever seen.
Wow, man. Damn.
That was a violation, man. That was literally so unnecessary from Gasperini, bro. Violating the man who won you the Europa League is crazy. But with all that being said, Club Brugge did one hell of a job and defied the odds to beat Atalanta as the last team to make the playoffs and qualify for the round 16. But before I get to my final prediction of this clash, let's talk about Aston Villa first. Now, Villa were one of the sides that qualified automatically to the round 16, with Unai Emery's tactical genius helping them finish in the final and 8th spot to gain that automatic round 16 ticket. And overall, Villa were actually pretty good in the group stage phase, I'm not gonna lie. They did lose twice, with one of the losses being against Club Brugge, the team they're playing right now, 1-0, and they also lost to Monaco away from home in a close affair, 1-0 as well. While on the other hand, they ended up beating Bayern Munich 1-0, but the goal scorer Jean Duran isn't with Villa anymore, he's over in Saudi Arabia with Al Nassr now, and they also beat Leipzig away from home 3-0, and beat another playoff side in this Champions League campaign, Celtic 4-2 at home. So they've done their job and made the round 16. But as I hinted before, Aston Villa lost one of their key players in this Champions League campaign so far, Jean Duran. And due to that, and also injury issues, they were super active in the winter transfer window, signing the likes of Marcus Rashford on loan, Daniel Mullen, Andres Garcia, although those 2 players are not playing in the Champions League, Axel Disasi on loan, and Marcus Asensio on loan as well. And Asensio, by the way, just scored 2 goals over this past weekend against Chelsea to get them that 2-1 comeback win, which highlights how resilient this Villa side could be. But despite this late win, Villa are a side for me that's a little bit up or down. What I mean by this is they'll get some good results, like beating Tottenham 2-1 in the FA Cup or drawing to my team Liverpool 2-2 before beating Chelsea 2-1 like I said. But at the same time, they're the same team that lost to relegation candidates Wolves 2-0 away from home, and even drew to destined relegation side Ipswich Town 1-1 at home, even though Ipswich were down at 10 men. And in the League 2, at the time of recording this, Villa are in 8th place, which definitely means they're struggling to cope with balancing the FA Cup, Champions League, and the Premier League, and their form is taking a hit. The thing is, Villa got Unai Emery, who is just an absolute beast of a tactician / manager when it comes to knockout football, and you can never count his sides out no matter how many injuries they're facing or what their form is looking like. But y'all should know me by now. I'm a man who loves an upset, and for me, I think Club Brugge could potentially be this season's Champions League Cinderella story. So just like Brugge already did in the Champions League, beating Aston Villa, I got Club Brugge winning this clash over the 2 legs and making the quarterfinals of the Champions League over the English side Aston Villa. I'm not sure how many people are going to agree with me for this take, but I'm standing on business. I said what I said. Let's now move on to one of the tastiest clashes in this Champions League round 16. Is the Madrid derby between Real Madrid versus Atletico Madrid. And oh boy, I cannot wait for this time, man. You just know it's going to be spicy. Now, talking about Real Madrid first, it's no secret that they're not performing to their extraordinarily high standards this season, and a lot of that has to do with injuries, with players like Rodrigo, Vinicius, Vinicius, Mendy, Tchouaméni, Rudiger, Alaba being out for portions of the season, while players like Dani Carvajal, the Real Madrid captain, and Militao being out for the season. Another reason is of course incorporating Kylian Mbappe to an already successful squad, and him trying to figure out how to play that number 9 role, considering Vinicius is not going to be replacing Mbappe's preferred left wing position. And with these problems, Real Madrid have been underwhelming compared to their high standards this season. Although they are fighting for the La Liga title right now, they're not in first place at the time we're recording this, and they're in a tough 3-horse race. Additionally, they've lost to teams that they shouldn't be losing to, like to Espanyol 1-0 recently in La Liga, but more so, they've been dropping points to teams that they shouldn't be in the competition they've won 2 out of the last 3 times, the Champions League, like to Lille 1-0 away from home, and to AC Milan at home 3-1. And due to them being underwhelming, they finished 11th place in the Champions League standings and had to go to the playoffs to play Man City. Luckily for them though, Manchester City are absolutely hot garbage this season, and there's low-key a chance they might not even make the Champions League next season. That's how poor they've been. And with that, Real Madrid stole the win in the first leg away to Man City, beating them 3-2 thanks to a Jude Bellingham winner. And then the second leg, due to an absolute Kylian Mbappe masterclass who bagged a hat-trick in the game, they won 3-0 and ended up winning on aggregate 6-2 to make the round of 16. But it is important to note that Bellingham will miss the first leg due to yellow card accumulation. Anyways, although in usual circumstances beating Manchester City would be deemed as impressive, it feels like every team nowadays is beating Man City, so I can't say that's too much of an accomplishment. However, it's Real Madrid, the kings of the competition, who have already won this thing 15 times. And if there's anybody who can just go from out of form to winning the entire thing out of nowhere, it would be Real Madrid. So you're always going to have to worry about that when it comes to the Spanish Giants. However, unluckily for Real Madrid in my opinion, they have the tough challenge of playing their inter-city rivals in the round 16, Atletico Madrid, who although are behind Real Madrid in the La Liga table, albeit by just one singular point at the time we were recording this, they were 6 places above Real Madrid on the Champions League table, finishing in 5th place and securing an automatic ticket to the round 16. And overall, they did pretty well in the Champions League campaign too, beating the likes of RB Leipzig 2-1, beating PSG away from home 2-1, and beating a very good Bayer Leverkusen side 2-1 at home too. However, they did have a couple of blimps in the beginning of this Champions League campaign, like losing 4-0 to Benfica, who are also in the round 16, and Lille 3-1 at home, who also secured a top 8 finish in the Champions League table. Additionally, Atletico Madrid are usually known for having a pretty strong defense, but they actually conceded the second most goals in the top 8 of the Champions League table, only 1 behind Barcelona, and they also conceded the same amount of goals as Real Madrid too. They just secured more points, which allowed them to finish higher. Not only that, in the games between Real Madrid and Atletico Madrid so far this season, they couldn't be separated, with both games ending in a 1-1 draw, with some saying that Atletico were the better side in the 2 games. But regardless, they couldn't be split apart. So man, this clash between the 2 Madrid teams in the Champions League is going to be a really tough one to predict in my opinion. If we look back at history though, usually Atletico Madrid is a team that does well in the Champions League until they have to face Real Madrid. They were so close to securing that Champions League trophy in 2014 until Sergio Ramos scored that last minute header, and then Real Madrid ended up beating Atleti in the final 4-1. Or in 2016, where Real Madrid won on penalties and ended up winning the Champions League again over Atleti's head top. However, some people tend to forget the context of that final, because if Griezmann converted that penalty as he usually does, and if Sergio Ramos' goal was rightfully called offsides, which it was, that's why the goal should not have counted, Atletico Madrid would have won the Champions League and not Real Madrid. So although yes, Real Madrid have always gone the better of Atleti in the past 10 to 12 years regarding the Champions League, it's not like Atleti has not been playing well. In fact, I'd even argue that they played even better at times. So I think I'm actually going to have to go for another upset here. And despite Atletico Madrid having a tough schedule coming up with the likes of playing Barcelona 3 times and Real Madrid twice in the span of a month, I think I'm going to have to put my nuts on the table and say what I think will happen. And I'm thinking despite the odds, Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid side will finally overcome Real Madrid in the Champions League and make the quarterfinals. Yeah, I said it. I'm going against the kings of the Champions League. And when the round of 16 is over, we'll see who looks like the genius. Me, it'll be me. Let's now move on to the next game in this round 16, where we got PSV Eindhoven taking on Arsenal. A game we've seen too much in recent history, with both of these guys being in the same group in the last Champions League campaign. But anyways, let's start this section off by talking about PSV Eindhoven. Now, it's no secret that these guys are kind of struggling in this 24-25 campaign. They are dealing with a ton of injury issues, like to Malik Tillman, Serginho Dest, Ricardo Pepi, etc., who are all going to be missing a decent portion of the rest of the season, including this tie against Arsenal. But they're not even first in the Eredivisie, with them being 5 points behind league leaders Ajax in second place. However, despite PSV's struggles, they did make it to the Champions League playoffs by finishing 14th place, and had to play Juventus, who finished 20th place and were definitely one of the more underwhelming big teams in this Champions League campaign. However, Juventus were still favorites to go through and make the round of 16, especially after they won the first leg 2-1 at home thanks to an absolute cracker from McKennie and a late goal from Mbangula. But in the second leg, PSV had an overall great performance to overcome this deficit, and even though American Timothy Weah scored an amazing volley to potentially seal the deal for Juve, Perisic, who's been playing like he's 24 years old again instead of 36, scored, while also Ismail Sabari scored in the 74th minute to take the game to extra time, where Ryan Flamingo would score while the entire Juve defense was sleeping to win the game 3-1 and overall 4-3 on aggregate to pull off the upset and make the round of 16. And then he, Bakayoko, and Noah Long hit the toughest celebration. Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil. That was a fire celly, I can't lie. And although I can admit PSV Eindhoven Dortmund is a very talented side, despite not being in the best league form and suffering from injuries. They're just kind of unlucky to be facing Arsenal. Now I know Arsenal are battling demons right now in terms of injuries, with Kai Havertz and Gabriel Jesus being out injured, which means that Mikel Merino has been playing makeshift striker, but he did score 2 goals against Leicester, so he's not even been that bad. And they also have been in some poor form, losing to West Ham 1-0 at home, which could knock them out of the title race against Liverpool. But even with all that being said, they're still Arsenal. And I think even with losing so many key players like those I already mentioned, and Bukayo Saka of course, their best player, I still think Arsenal have too much quality to lose to the Dutch club PSV Eindhoven. Maybe I'm just being too delusional about Arsenal and I'm hyping them up too much, but even with everything bad going on with them, I just think they're a little too good to be knocked out by this Dutch side, man. Plus, they did comfortably finish in the top 8 of the Champions League table, finishing 3rd place. So with that, I do gotta show them some respect and say that they'll do well in the round 16. So with that, I got Arsenal making it to the quarterfinals over PSV Eindhoven. And if they don't, fuck it, I'll give away a $25 Amazon gift card. And I got some comments on my last video saying I need to give away a gift card for Feyenoord beating Milan, but bro, that wasn't part of the bet. Y'all need to listen to the video carefully next time. That bet only applied if Celtic beat Bayern Munich and if Brest beat PSG, in which neither happened. But if PSV beat Arsenal, I'll give away a $25 gift card. I got y'all. That's how confident I am in Arsenal making the quarterfinals. But if PSV Eindhoven pulls off the upset, I'll only be giving away the gift card in my Discord server. So if y'all want a chance to win that, make sure to join below. It's in the YouTube description. Anyways, moving on to the next match in the round 16, we got a pretty even matchup, I'd say, in Borussia Dortmund versus Lille. Let's start by talking about Dortmund first though. And I'm not gonna lie, they're just mad weird, yo. First of all, they're absolutely cheeks in the Bundesliga. Like they're 10th place. I don't know what's going on over there at Dortmund. They were doing so bad that they even fired Nuri Sahin, a manager they hired just before the season started, and hired Niko Kovac to replace him, a manager who has underperformed in his last couple of jobs with Bayern Munich and Wolfsburg. And he's a manager that I'm personally not the biggest fan of. But despite BVB playing terribly in the Bundesliga and hiring Kovac, they actually have been doing pretty solid in the Champions League. They finished 10th place, which is basically right outside an automatic spot in the round 16, and they had some good results in the group stage phase, like beating Club Brugge 3-0 away from home and Celtic 7-1 at home. But they did lose 3 times. Once to Real Madrid 5-2, once to Barcelona 3-2, and once embarrassingly to Bologna 2-1. But then in the round 16 tie against Sporting, Dortmund were just phenomenal. Not so much in the second leg because that ended in a 0-0 draw, but in the first leg away from home, Dortmund were on smokes, winning 3-0 in a ground that's hard to play at. They also have been slightly improving in the Bundesliga too, with them smashing Union Berlin 6-0. So maybe they can actually finish in a European spot if they keep this up, but only time will tell. Regardless, we have to look at Dortmund like it's Severance, you know, the TV show, and we have to completely separate Dortmund in the Bundesliga compared to Dortmund in the Champions League, because I feel like they're 2 completely different sides. And with Gittins and Adeyemi's lightning pace on the wings, with Girassi, who has 10 goals in 10 Champions League games this season, they could be a side that shocks everybody. But before we talk about my prediction for this game, we do have to go over Lille first, who has probably been the most surprising team in the Champions League this season so far. After all, they somehow finished in the top 8 spot in the Champions League group stage phase, finishing in 7th place, and secured an automatic ticket to the round 16. And this is all due to some great performances by Lille, like beating Real Madrid surprisingly 1-0, beating Atletico Madrid 3-1 away from home. Damn, Lille really beat both Madrid sides, that's crazy. Drawing to Juventus 1-1, smashing Feyenoord 6-1, almost beating Liverpool even though they lost 2-1, etc. Lille have done well, and they definitely deserve that top 8 finish. And with top players on their team still, like Jonathan David, who's been putting Lille on his back, when is he gonna find a new top club to join for real? And others like Eden Zagrova, Angel Gomez, Mitchell Bakker, etc. Lille could also be a Cinderella story in this Champions League campaign. But Bruno Genesio's side has been a little out of form recently. In 2025, Lille have lost to Strasbourg in League 1 2-1, lost to Dunkirk, a League 2 side, and no, I'm not talking about the Christopher Nolan movie, I'm talking about the team on penalties in the French Cup round 16, and to Le Havre at home in the league. And yes, although they beat Monaco most recently 2-1, which is a good result, maybe this Lille side is slipping up at the wrong time. And we saw this last year where Dortmund wasn't doing that good in the Bundesliga. I mean, they literally finished 5th place, but they still made the Champions League final against all the odds. And I feel like we could see something similar happen here. So although everybody's doubting Lille and they've been proving everyone wrong so far, I think the road to glory ends here for them. And I surprisingly got Borussia Dortmund making it to the quarterfinals over Lille. This is definitely a pretty tricky prediction though, I'm not gonna lie. But I think Girassi will show off in these games and carry Dortmund over the line. Let's now move over to the next game in the round 16 and talk about Feyenoord surprisingly facing Inter Milan. But before we get yapping about this tie, please remember to subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it and it means a lot, so thank you. And also if you guys can, follow my Twitter and my Instagram, both at Nabuto, if you just want to hear my thoughts on football games, transfers, and overall, just to get to know me more. And also make sure to join the Discord server, link in the description, and also follow me on Twitch. Live streams may be coming soon, so if you want to, follow me on my socials and also like the video. Thank you. Now back to topic, let's talk about Feyenoord first, who have surprised us all in this 24-25 Champions League campaign. Now it's no secret that Feyenoord are kind of struggling in general, in terms of league form, with them being 3rd place right now and having basically no chance of winning the Eredivisie League title, respectfully, and also in terms of players getting injured / leaving, like Aisa Ueda, Nbyam Hong, Niu Koop, Facu Gonzalez, Zaruki, etc., all being out injured, and probably their best player Santiago Jimenez leaving in the winter transfer window to AC Milan, a team that Feyenoord play in the playoffs, which we'll get to. Not only that, Feyenoord didn't even do that well in the Champions League group stage phase. Sure, they at least made the playoffs by finishing 19th place and beat some good teams like Benfica 3-1 away from home, drew to Man City 3-3 despite being 3-0 down with 15 minutes to go, and slapped the hell out of Bayern Munich 3-0 at home, but they also lost pretty embarrassingly a couple of times, like to Lille 6-1 and one of the easiest teams to beat this season, RB Salzburg 3-1. So I wasn't expecting too much out of Feyenoord when they were drawn to face AC Milan in the playoffs, especially with Santi Jimenez leaving them, Feyenoord suffering from a ton of injuries, and their original manager getting sacked and having an interim manager take charge. And even with Feyenoord winning 1-0 in the first leg, thanks to Paschal, who got a gift from Mike Magnon, let's be honest, I still didn't think Feyenoord had what it takes to stand strong in the second leg at the San Siro and beat AC Milan. And this seemed to be the case initially, with Santi Jimenez scoring within 1 minute of the game starting and equalizing the tie early on. I thought it'll only be a matter of time before AC Milan gets another goal and makes it to the round 16. And if they did, we would have had a Milan derby in the round 16. That would have been so sick. But instead, Dale Hernandez decided that he wanted to flop like a fish out of water and perform the worst dive I've ever seen in my life, while already being on a yellow card, which then caused him to get sent off, and AC Milan were down to 10 men. Then for some reason, Sergio Conceição had the genius idea of taking off two of Milan's best attacking players in Christian Pulisic and Santi Jimenez for two defenders, and decided to leave Rafa Leao on the pitch, which is understandable, but also João Felix, a lone player, and allowed him to play for the entire 90 minutes, while he did fuck all. I literally made a tweet about this and it blew up, because I was cooking, respectfully. This Portuguese bias from Conceição is simply insane, and of course, the ex-Philadelphia Union striker, Julian Carranza, was subbed onto the pitch and scored a header in the 73rd minute to give Feyenoord the advantage again and win 2-1 over the two legs, sending them to the round 16 at the San Siro. AC Milan went from the Italian kings to chokers. I can't believe this. But enough of this Feyenoord and AC Milan talk. Let's now move on to Inter Milan, who my goodness are a scary side. They're the one team in Italy in the last 5 years that's had a serious threat of winning the Champions League. After all, they did make the final of the competition back in 2023, narrowly losing to Man City 1-0. And if Lukaku could convert one of his 50 chances, they could have won the Champions League for real. But now they're trying again this season, and they're looking like one of the favorites to lift the Champions League, if I do say so myself. Not only did they finish 4th place in the Champions League group stage phase, securing an automatic round 16 ticket, but in the 8 games they played, they only conceded a grand total of 1 goal, and that was in their 1-0 loss to Leverkusen away from home. Besides that, they beat Monaco 3-0, RB Leipzig 1-0, Arsenal 1-0, etc. Inter are cooking. Not only that, in this super tight Serie A title race, Inter's chances of winning the league are looking pretty good. After all, they are first place at the time of recording this, and although they got some tough fixtures coming up, I don't think Feyenoord is going to be too much of a challenge for Inter to handle. I'm not trying to disrespect Feyenoord, but with their injury crisis going on, them simply not being that outrageously good like Inter, and them just hiring Robin van Persie to be their manager, who knows how Feyenoord will do. So with that, I got Inter Milan making the Champions League quarterfinals with ease. And if Feyenoord somehow wins against Inter Milan, screw it, I'll give away another $25 Amazon gift card. How about that? Make sure to join the Discord server if you want a chance of winning that. But now let's move on to the all-German clash, a tie that I'm actually pretty excited about. We got Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen, and this game's gonna be way tastier than bland German food. Believe that. Starting off by talking about Bayern, they're not performing that well this season, I'm not gonna lie. Sure, they recently beat Eintracht Frankfurt 4-0 in the Bundesliga, which extended Bayern's lead at the top of the table by 8 points against second place Bayer Leverkusen, the side they're about to face. But I feel like this is doing Bayern too much justice in terms of the way they're actually performing, because they haven't been performing that great overall. I mean, they literally conceded 3 goals to Holstein Kiel in the beginning of February, and in the playoff tie against Celtic, a team that Bayern should be really stomping on, they only beat Celtic 2-1 away from home, and even conceded some really good opportunities to them. And then at home, they were down 1-0 to Celtic, and it honestly should have been more if Celtic just knew how to put the ball into the back of the net. Then out of basically pure luck, Alphonso Davies had the ball come his way, and he scored the late equalizer in the match in the 90+4th minute to break Celtic hearts and make the round 16. Not only that, Bayern literally finished 12th place, which is not bad, but they're a side that needs to be making the top 8, and they even lost to the likes of Aston Villa 1-0 and Feyenoord 3-0 in the group stage phase, which is really concerning. Vincent Kompany's doing alright as the head coach, but he hasn't been that convincing to me to say that I got confidence in Bayern winning the Champions League. And now let's switch over to Leverkusen, which, fun fact, the last time they lost domestically in Germany was against RB Leipzig on August 31st, 2024, and that's been their only loss of the Bundesliga campaign so far. The Champions League is a little bit different though, because although they finished 6th place, which secured them that automatic spot in the round 16, they did lose twice. Once was against Liverpool, in which my club smashed Leverkusen 4-0, which was a pretty surprising result that doesn't get talked about enough, and the other time was against Atletico Madrid, where they lost 2-1. Other than that, Leverkusen have actually been doing pretty good, including in their games against Bayern Munich. They've already played each other 3 times this season, with 2 of them in the Bundesliga being draws, and then in the DFB Pokal Cup round 16, Leverkusen actually got the better of Bayern Munich away from home and beat them 1-0, which is impressive. Xabi Alonso is still cooking with the Leverkusen side, and with Bayern Munich being pretty underwhelming in the grand scheme of things, I can see something similar that happened in the DFB Pokal Cup happen in the round 16. So with that being said, I'm gonna have to back the upset and say that Bayer Leverkusen is gonna make the quarterfinals over Bayern Munich. Let's see if I end up being correct. Let's now move on to a very exciting clash that's already happened in the Champions League already. We got Benfica versus FC Barcelona. Now the last game between these two sides was probably the game of the season in my opinion, because at one point in the match, Benfica were winning 3-1, and then right when Barca scored, Benfica got another one back to make it 4-2, and then out of pure pure luck and just hard work, and a Rafinha masterclass of course, Barca came back and won 5-4 away from home. This game was absolutely crazy, you just had to be there. But now let's talk about the two sides individually, and let's start by talking about Benfica. Now Benfica right now are in the midst of a title race in the Portuguese league, with them currently being tied on points with Sporting. So Benfica are definitely going to have some focus on that while also trying to progress in the Champions League. Now in the UCL, Benfica have been pretty alright. They finished 16th place in the league standings and made it to the playoffs, and had some good results in the group stage phase, like beating Atletico Madrid 4-0 at home, Monaco 3-2 away from home, and Juventus 2-0 away from home. But they also had some pretty poor results, like drawing to Bologna 0-0 at home and losing to Feyenoord at home 3-1. But in the playoffs, they had to face a team that they actually already played already, and that was Monaco. And the first leg went Benfica's way, thanks to Pavlidis, who scored and got that crucial goal away from home. But then the second leg was just pure entertainment, I'm not gonna lie. It started with Kerem Aktürkoğlu scoring to give Benfica a 2-goal advantage. But ex-Liverpool cult hero Takumi Minamino scored in the 32nd minute to bring back the game within one, and then Ben Seguir would score in the 51st minute to level up the tie even Stevens. However, Pavlidis would score a penalty for Benfica to give them the advantage again, but 5 minutes later, young French super talent Elena Kena would score and level up the tie again, before Orkun Kokcu would score 3 minutes later off some poor defending to restore that aggregate lead and eventually make it to the round of 16, 4-3 on aggregate. So Benfica have had some pretty close calls, but overall when push comes to shove, it seems like they always find a way to deliver. Now Barcelona on the other hand, sometimes they look like the best team in the world, and sometimes they just look inexperienced. They were cooking in the beginning of the season, which is why they were competing with Liverpool for that top spot in the Champions League table. But then they would have slumps, which would cost them points in the La Liga title race. However, one thing's for sure, is that their offense is definitely the best in the world right now. Lewandowski is doing his job, Lamine Yamal is the best young talent in the world right now in my opinion, and Rafinha is having a Ballon d'Or level season according to many. However, Barca's defense is doing not so good. In fact, out of the top 18 teams in the Champions League table, they conceded the most goals with 13, and the next team to concede more than them was 19th place Feyenoord with 21. That's terrible defending, man, I'm not gonna lie. Barca just love to outscore their opponents. But you know what that also means. Every game with Barcelona playing is just gonna be entertaining to watch, which is why I'm pretty hyped about this tie. But I'm just gonna have to keep it real. Although Benfica definitely has the capability of pulling off an upset, I mean they should have won that game earlier on, I just think Barcelona have too much attacking power for Benfica's defense to stop. And with Florentino Luis being out injured most likely for this clash, I don't think they stand a chance. So with that, I got Barcelona making it to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. No upset for me in this clash, guys. Sorry. But now let's move on to the most exciting round 16 clash in this year's Champions League campaign, where we got PSG taking on Liverpool. And wow, this was one of the only teams that I didn't want my club to face. And yet, here we are, playing PSG. No way this is what first place in the Champions League group stage phase gets you, bro. This is unfair. But let's start by going over PSG first. Now, these guys don't really need to focus on League 1 anymore, because currently they're running away with it, being first place with a 13-point lead against Marseille. And they're still the only undefeated team in the top 5 leagues in Europe. That should be Liverpool too, but we somehow lost to Nottingham Forest 1-0 at home, bro.
Boy, ain't no way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
But the point I'm trying to make is, PSG can completely focus on the Champions League and not have to worry too much about League 1, which is obviously an advantage for them. And speaking of the Champions League, PSG's form in the competition wasn't initially the best, with them losing to Arsenal 2-0, drawing to PSV Eindhoven 1-1, losing to Atletico 2-1 at home, and losing to Bayern 1-0 away from home. They weren't even in a playoff spot when these results happened, but as the season slowly progressed, so did PSG, and now they look like a much better side than they were before, with Alexa Bradley Barcola, João Neves, Vitinha, Hakimi, Nuno Mendes, Gonçalo Ramos, new signing Kvaratskhelia, and of course Ousmane Dembele, all looking like they're in the form of their lives. And when they had that do or die game against Man City, despite going down 2-0, they showed incredible resilience and came back and won 4-2, and then ended up beating Stuttgart 4-1 thanks to a Dembele hat-trick, and this helped them finish 15th place to make it to the playoffs and play Brest for a spot in the round 16. And let's just say PSG ran through Brest, absolutely fucking them 10-0 on aggregate to make it to the round 16. Wow. 10-0 over 2 games? Nah, PSG didn't hold back against Brest whatsoever. They wanted everybody to see how badly Brest could be exposed, man. I can't lie, I kind of enjoyed Brest being exposed. It was certainly a fun watch if I do say so myself. But the point is, PSG are kind of on fire right now, and they're one of the scariest teams heading into the later stages of the Champions League. But before I give my prediction for this tie, let's talk about Liverpool first. Now, it's no secret that Liverpool are one of the best teams in the world right now, if not the best. We're currently on top of the Premier League table right now by 11 points, even though yes, we have played one more game than everybody else since we made it to the Carabao Cup final, and we also finished on top of the Champions League table as well. And we won 7 out of the 7 group stage phase games, despite playing some really good opponents in the process. And we're not counting that last game against PSV Eindhoven, by the way. We played with like a C team, bruh. So right now, Liverpool is a side that nobody wants to face. And I feel like if you played anybody except PSG and Barcelona right now, and maybe even Inter, it would be relatively comfortable for us. But right now, we're kind of sort of in a little bit of a bad patch right now. Sure, we just beat Man City 2-0 away from home at the Etihad for like the first time in 10 years, but we have drawn Villa 2-2, Everton 2-2, lost to Plymouth Argyle 1-0 in the FA Cup, and drew to Nottingham away from home 1-1, all in recent times. And our performances haven't been the greatest, especially defensively. It seems like we could be pretty weak in the back sometimes, especially the fullback area. Like Robertson, respectfully, he's kind of washed. But thanks to the greatness of Mo Salah, who's carrying this offense while Gakpo's been injured, Salah deserves the Ballon d'Or, by the way. I don't want to hear this Rafinha talk, Liverpool has still gotten the results that have gotten us this far this season. But I don't know how other Liverpool fans feel about this, but I'm getting some serious 2019-20 vibes right now, man. We're cooking in the Premier League just like we did back then, and we're the best team in Europe and are supposed to make a deep run in the Champions League. And coincidentally, we have to face a good team in the round 16, just like we did back then against Atletico Madrid. And back then, we did lose in very surprising fashion. And dare I say it, I feel like I'm getting a pretty similar vibe right now. I think Liverpool could win the Carabao Cup and the Premier League. But with PSG being our opponents right now, I feel like this could sadly be the end of our Champions League run. So with that, I'm sadly gonna have to say that PSG will be making the Champions League quarterfinal over my beloved club Liverpool. However, I do have to say, I'm really hoping I turn into Jinx Buto for this prediction. I would love to see Liverpool go far in the Champions League once again. Please! But anyways, who do you guys think will win each round of 16 clash? Let me know down in the comments. Now, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to subscribe. I really appreciate it. And please be sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, and join the Discord community. All the links are in my YouTube description. And last but not least, if you want to learn more about the rise, fall, and rise again of Ryan Gravenberch, you definitely want to check out this video right here. You won't regret it.